Good morning, friends, and welcome back to Mobility Matters, broadcasts live here at Miami's Community Newspaper Studios in South Miami. And we want to thank our partners for continuing to produce this show with us. I'm Javier Betancourt, the host of Mobility Matters, and we're here every other Thursday from 9 to 10 a.m. This show is an opportunity to discuss mobility, transportation, its intersection with different issues like land use, and today we'll be talking about climate change and resiliency and sustainability. As your host, I am Javier Betancourt, once again, Executive Director of the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, or CITT. We're the agency of Miami-Dade County charged with overseeing your half-penny sales tax for transportation. But enough about me, because we have a lot to discuss with a very distinguished guest today, Jim Murley. Jim is the Chief Resilience Officer for Miami-Dade County. He has a long, distinguished career, which we'll get into a little bit as we have a discussion here. So, Jim, first of all, thank you for joining the program.
Thank you, Javier. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you. And so, Jim, let's start off with what is the Chief Resilience Officer? What are you in charge of? What are some of the main things that you deal with on a day-to-day?
Well, Javier, today we've grown. The office was basically repurposed from an office of sustainability, given broadened responsibilities under Mayor Jimenez. But under Mayor Daniela Levine-Cava, we've really expanded and taken on quite a bit. So today we sit as an office that reports directly to Mayor Cava. We look at the entire climate change portfolio, which means adapting to the impacts of climate change and also working to reduce the greenhouse gases that are emitted by the county's activities and to put forward ideas to the entire community for reducing greenhouse gases. We also have the Biscayne Bay Chief Bay Officer, Arella Begay. We have the Chief Heat Officer, Jane Gilbert. We have a long-term planning activity we call Future Ready under Kim Brown, who used to be in our planning department. And so we have a broad array of activities that are under the umbrella of resilience and are really thinking about what are the actions we can take today, especially in the capacities that the large county government has, that will make us future ready for the changes that we can foresee coming at us.
So the future of this county is literally in your hands. No pressure.
Well, maybe.
I mean, what a huge responsibility.
The responsibility to get the science-driven facts out for the decision makers, the mayor and the county commission and our other elected bodies, to know that, we have evidence of what has happened over the last decades, and we have good science that shows that we are going to have increasing compound flooding events caused by the change in the atmosphere, a lot more humidity, and what we've been through in the last several months, right. Extreme heat. So we're going to have to prepare to adapt to those changes. But we can be part of the solution, and that's why we're focused on the effort to reduce greenhouse gases.
And obviously Miami, given our geography or many elements of where we're located and how we're built, if you will, this is really ground zero, right, for climate change, resiliency, sustainability efforts. And I think the whole world, certainly the country, is looking at us to see what we're doing.
I think we definitely, because of our international position, we have 70 consul general offices, and we're constantly meeting and entertaining groups from other countries to come in to see what we're doing, and we get the opportunity to listen to them with their ideas. So I think it builds on Miami's sort of Latin, South American and Caribbean and Central American capital and the intersection of travel and research that goes on here.
Well, as I said, it's a huge responsibility, really requiring someone with a great deal of knowledge and ability. And I can think of no one better for that task than you. And just reading through your bio, and we've known each other for years, so I knew some of it. And I've always been impressed by you, but there were things I learned that I didn't know about, which impressed me even further. So, we'll start, I guess, just prior to coming to the county, you were the executive director of the South Florida Regional Planning Council, SFRPC, where I also spent a few years.
You did.
Prior to that, if I recall correctly, you were the executive director of CUES at FAU.
Center for Urban Environmental Solutions
Right.
At the Florida Atlantic University.
Right, where I got my master's degree. So
Right,
another touch point. We're going to have a few
intersection.
of these.
Yeah.
Let's see. Tell me if I'm wrong. Prior to that, you were the secretary of the Department of Community Affairs, appointed by Governor Lawton Chiles.
I was.
Okay.
In the late
DCA.
90s.
So
yeah.
that's the agency that at the time oversaw growth management and land use in the state of Florida. Has since moved on
It's
to,
gone
to
through
become other things.
gone through evolutions.
We'll say that. You had, let's say you started and were the president or executive director of 1,000 Friends of Florida,
That's correct.
right? I just learned a couple minutes ago that you worked at NOAA. So the, oh gosh. what's
National
NOAA stand
Oceanic
for?
Atmospheric Administration, which is
Thank you.
the National Hurricane Center
Right,
and fisheries, and I was in the Coastal Zone Management Program
Wow.
as part of the national office.
And then, of course, and I really want to thank you for your service as we're approaching Veterans Day. You were also in the U.S. Army and fought in Vietnam. Is this the
I was
case?
in Army Artillery Unit in Vietnam.
Well, again, thank you for your service. And I believe you earned a Bronze Star. So I want to thank you for that again.
Thanks.
So, I mean, if you look at that, what a career. And all of it really has prepared you for this moment to really be not just our local leader, but a national leader on resiliency. So, how have all those experiences kind of led you to this point? And how are we seeing that wealth of knowledge and experience kind of, I don't know what I want to say here, being applied, if you will, to our local issues?
Well, of course, we both have the benefit of looking backwards, and I can certainly see how each step in my career gave me new tools to address the issues that maybe the next job presented. My academic background after undergrad, I got a degree in law, environmental and land use planning law at George Washington University. And then I was gone for that term in the military, and I came back and I did the coursework, never finished the coursework for urban and regional planning degree.
Okay.
So that academic background is always, I benefited from that each time I would take another opportunity in another step of my career. I think looking back, what it prepared me for was an understanding of the complexities of government, right? The public administration perspective of, how a structure of government is set up and how do you take advantage of that if you want to make progress and address challenges. For example, the county government here in Miami-Dade County, with a strong mayor and a legislative body, is one of only 2 counties. There are 67 counties in Florida, Jacksonville, Duval, and Miami, that have that structure.
Right.
So you'll go about addressing issues in those 2 counties different than the other 65. They have the traditional legislative body of a county commission who elects their mayor from their body for 1 year. So that understanding that and recognizing that's a really important thing as you address the issues that you're responsible for. And I think also that working in the not-for-profit sector, when I had the really great opportunity at 1,000 Friends, meant meeting the private sector folks and working with foundations and understanding what a membership organization does and how important communication is. As we sit here and the emphasis you put in your job on communication, I think I've learned the same thing. When I had the opportunity to expand under Mayor Cava the Office of Resilience, one of the things I built in as a unit is an Office of Communications and Engagement, not an activity assigned to everybody, but professionals who work with our team and professionals in the rest of the county to get that communication piece really a priority.
No, it's critically important because it's going to take people from every sector, from all walks of life, to really be part of the solution, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about something that's coming up because I don't want to miss it. You are having a climate summit.
We are, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, one of the things that makes Miami-Dade County and Southeast Florida kind of ground zero for dealing with climate change, as you mentioned earlier, is the fact for the last 15 years, the 4 counties in Southeast Florida, Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade, and Monroe, the Florida Keys, have come together and formed the Climate Change Compact, the Southeast Florida Climate Change Compact. And it is now a legal agreement, an interlocal agreement among the 4 counties. We interact with our over 100 cities in that area, 6 million people. So it's a significant area. We share a lot of problems dealing with climate change. We have unique solutions in each county and the cities. But one of the things we do is to celebrate the work that has taken place over the past year with a summit. And it rotates geographically. So this year, Miami-Dade County has the honor of hosting with the other 3 counties the summit. And it'll be November 16th and 17th at the Miami Beach Convention Center. Okay. And we still have registrations available. So we would welcome members of who are listening to contact our office. You can do that at resilience-miami-dade.gov. Okay. And we'll take you to the right place to get registered. There'll be a really solid program for that Thursday and Friday. We'll celebrate what we've done, and we'll talk about the challenges ahead. And the other thing about that compact, Javier, is that we have, since the very beginning, at key times, come together to get a consensus about sea level rise that makes sense in our region. And I think that has been a model used around the state of Florida and really the country, where regional collaboration can take this information and bring it down to scale to be able to be used by the professionals and understood by the public.
I think that's so critically important. And again, given your background in regionalism, you're perfectly situated to bring these communities together. I mean, after all, water doesn't respect jurisdictional boundaries,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely not.
This is a regional problem requiring regional solutions.
And part of our partnership the counties have includes the South Florida Water Management District and the 2 regional planning councils that serve those 4 counties, South Florida and Treasure Coast. So we try to be inclusive of the government entities, and we have a really strong initiative working with our business community around economic resilience. Right.
So just focusing on sea level rise in a bit, and at some point we'll talk about transportation, which is the focus of the program.
Whatever you like.
Read recently that the Army Corps has come back maybe with a new approach to how it might address sea level rise in Miami-Dade County. There was some backlash when they first came out with the original proposal to basically build up seawalls and fortify us from our water. Are you involved in that effort, and where is it, and tell us about where that's heading and what we might see in the near future with that?
Well, this is a good example of the need to understand how different institutions have played a role in Miami-Dade County and the role they play today. The Corps of Engineers, working through the Jacksonville district and they're all the way up to Washington headquarters, they're responsible for us being here, right? Mm-hmm. The regional drainage system, the Central and South Florida flood control system, those big canals that you drive over, that's what keeps the drainage system operating 24/7. It also delivers fresh water to the well fields of our communities, and it protects and provides under the Everglades program at Restoration of Everglades, Comprehensive Everglades Restoration SERP, has that enhancing our environment and bringing the right water quality and quantity to the Everglades. We've been doing that for decades, and it is actually now part of how we address the changes in our aquatic environment, our drainage and everything else as we go to the future. So the project that you're referring to is one of 6 projects going on that the Corps is responsible for in our county. They've always had navigation, so the Port of Miami has a long history of working with the Corps of Engineers on the channels and maintaining navigation into our deep water port. They've been our partner on our beaches. If you go and enjoy Miami Beach or any of our sandy beaches facing the Atlantic, we have a 40-year history of working with the Corps to maintain those beaches. And they're part of working with us on a number of areas. And so one of the new elements that was introduced after Hurricane Irma was what measures could be evaluated. It's not at a point of actually doing the construction like we are at Everglades and at the beach, but the feasibility study to protect us from storm surge. Remember, this is after Hurricane Sandy, after many of the storms, after the one Ian that hit the Southwest. The
waters become worse than the wind, really. What
we say is, you run from the wind and you hide from the water.
Yeah.
And it sort of reinforced what everybody knew, that storm surge was such a powerful element of a hurricane. Now, you don't get storm surge with a bad rainstorm. We get flooding, or even at a high tide, we could get flooding. But that movement of water with the force of the wind behind it, and elevated by perhaps a high tide, depending on when the storm comes ashore, has massive destructive capability. So the study that we call the Back Bay study was to determine what we could do to look at a wide range of measures to protect the mainland and the islands in our county from storm surge. It also looked at communities that traditionally haven't gotten the protection, say that they didn't have the economic wealth to protect themselves. So the environmental justice communities, we were looking at those. So sort of summarizing how that first phase went, the study went heavy into large structures that would protect us from storm surge, but assumed that storm surge over the next 50 years would be elevated by sea level rise. So in reality, it wasn't designed to combat sea level rise. It was designed to combat storm surge, but it assumed that storm surge would be amplified by sea level rise, like everything else that we deal with in the ocean. So we're back. We had a restart. The mayor made it clear to the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works, Michael Connor, and got his agreement that we would restart this and have much more attention on nature-based features and elevating buildings and flood-proofing. And we would look at some structures, but we would do they would be more positioned out near the Atlantic shoreline, where we have the dune system and maintain the beach. And we're not committed to any of this, Javier, and for the people listening, this is a feasibility study to get us to the point where we would go back to the United States Congress and say that we think we have a plan. If you approve it, and then we'll move forward to implement it.
Okay. All right. Let's now make that turn towards transportation, if we will. We'll start with roadways. So I think one of the most immediate issues, and I suppose one of the I don't want to call it lowest hanging fruit, because this is all very challenging and difficult, but one of the immediate solutions that's already been implemented in some areas to address sea level rise is lifting our roadways. I know Miami Beach has done some of that.
They have.
And that's obviously associated with pumping the water, and it's a whole system. So what are your efforts? What is the county's efforts in terms of looking at our roadway structure, where we see already flooding, like places in Brickell, where we see the potential for sea level rise to do even more damage? And what are we doing about that with respect to our roadway system and elevating those?
Well, of course, the roadway system out there, which I used to get here. I was probably on a city road when I left my home. I got on a county avenue and then got on a US 1. So we have, as you well know in your business, multiple county, city, and state efforts. So depending on the roadway, and the entity responsible for it, we'll engage in these studies necessary to say, if we need to upgrade this roadway, say it's 79th Street Causeway, which is state, but is critical to be. It's used for moving people away from the islands during a storm. What are the combination of things we have to do to make that roadway in the future operate as a transportation system, but also to protect it from storm surge? And in the case of 79th Street Causeway, we're looking for environmental benefits also that'll help the bay restore. Because when we built the causeway decades ago, that was not a consideration. It was not a consideration. So there are, under the state, working with the county, the village, North Bay Village, everybody's got to be at the table, working out. There's developers that have to, are looking at new parcels to redevelop. So there you get everybody there looking at a very discrete causeway. They're very important. Say you're on Bayshore, down by where the marinas are.
Yeah, Coconut Grove, yeah.
Yes, that's a county-owned road, but it's obviously very important to the city.
Right.
Mercy Hospital's there. Our Vizcaya Park is there. So Bayshore is under study, and I think we're very close to in the design. It'll be elevated. There'll be a better drainage system. There'll be a pump system put in. We've got to work with the adjacent property owners.
Right.
We got to work with the city. So again, this mix of government responsibilities focused on multiple benefits, not just the transportation benefit is driving this because the roadway itself needs repair.
And Bayshore's a great example because I think that project first started as we need to renovate this roadway, we need to widen it, whatever it may be. And then at some point, I don't know if it was you or someone intervened and say, hey, while we're doing this, we need to think about sea level rise.
And our bicycle enthusiasts said we got to have the Commodore Trail here done the right way, not an afterthought, but part of the mobility is a Commodore Trail in parallel to the roadway as part of all these things. So and
promoting biking, by the way, is part of the plan, right? To combat climate change and things because we need to get people out of cars. So.
I mean, the underline sits underneath our elevated metro rail system, right? And that corridor is the original Florida East Coast Railroad corridor that Henry Flagler said to his engineers, put my railroad on the highest ground.
Yeah.
So today, the elevated metro rail and the underline below it and the mixed-use development taking place at the stations is higher in relatively, because we were pretty flat, but relative to, along other places, that's exactly where we should have that kind of development.
Right. And obviously a big part of this puzzle is getting people out of their single occupancy vehicles, right, which are huge polluters, and getting them into transit and bike ped, right? So how is that incorporated into the plan?
Well, working with our transportation partners, multiple, from your organization to the Transportation Planning Organization to Department of Transportation Public Works, cities, this is your drill, and we want to do our part to enhance that transportation planning process. We want to bring the science and the information we know from what's going on around the world. We're part of an international network of cities, Resilient Cities Network, and because we're not the transportation planners, we're not the transportation engineers. We want to bring our perspective and the information that we have to make those projects more successful. And then there's working with our Department of Community Development and Housing. So at the stations, where we're now aggressively partnering with the private sector to turn what were surface parking lots into units, that are subsidized and market rate units. And all that means the opportunity for choice, right? To get somebody can say, I really don't need a car. I can, get that apartment or use my car far less. Now, we're not going to get everybody out of their cars. So that's why our emphasis on electric vehicles is very strong. That's actually falls under our responsibility to mitigate greenhouse gases. But it's far more than that. Again, a single purpose, but with multiple opportunities and benefits. So getting into our responsibility is to lead within the county government with other departments on EV charging networks and taking advantage of the tremendous amount of federal funding. I mean, you and I have been in this business a long time. I've never seen so much money moving through the system from the federal government. So we are aggressively getting as much as we can for everything from a road improvement to the next link of the SMART program to all the other elements.
Yeah, we should note, coincidentally, or perhaps not, Secretary of Transportation Peter Buttigieg, I can never say that correctly, excuse me.
I'm glad you tried.
Was here in Miami yesterday, right, with the mayor. And had
2 days in the region. Started in Palm Beach.
I saw him. He was on Brightline. He was at the port. I saw him in a couple of locations. And it was to announce, a lot of federal funding coming our way to address many of these very issues. And one of them, which I'm sure you're involved in, is the seaport issue. Can you speak to that?
Well, we have a real leader in Port Miami. They have a limited area that they can operate in. The islands that are now make up the port, and over the years they've kept the rail link there active and improved it. We're going to shore power for we have the largest number of cruise ships that home port here and visit here, and so by installing what is called shore power, is basically working with Florida Power and Light, the capacity for these large floating cities, right, to turn off their own energy system, which is usually run on diesel oil of a low grade. They do treat it for many pollutants through systems in their emissions, but they'd have to run those while the ships were at dock. So now by putting in, and this has been where the mayor has been a real leader, working with Heidi Webb, our port director, to make that option available, and so that the cruise ships, and they have to retrofit the ships themselves, but they can plug in. Then the rest of the port has a net zero plan, because they're looking to expand into an inland port area, and they want to see even the movement of the containers from the main port to an inland port to be done by electric vehicles. And so it's a comprehensive approach. We're seeking funding from the federal government to move it ahead, but every element of what they want to do in the future, they're measuring by reducing greenhouse gases to a point where they can say, and part of the county's goal, by 2050 of being net zero emissions, is that they would be right there with us in all of their current and expanded activities.
Now, some detractors, and I've read this in several places, would say that electrification really isn't solving anything, because ultimately that electricity is being produced by a coal plant or some other fossil fuel. In Miami-Dade County, that's not the case, right? We have Turkey Point, it's nuclear energy, it's clean.
Sure. What we call the grid. If you plug into what we call the grid, which drives these lights and everything in this room, it's what powers the grid that we have to measure against. We can't take a pass if the grid is, say, 90% oil or coal, which it is not. It's not in Miami-Dade County with Florida Power and Light. But they are about 60+% dependent on natural gas, which when you burn that to generate electricity does create greenhouse gases. Okay. So that's their goal. They want to move. They've got the nuclear capacity, here at Turkey Point and up in St. Lucie County. They have vastly increased their solar. But of course, in Miami-Dade County, where they have two utility-based solar generating facilities, they're kind of running out of room to do that. So they have to put solar in most other parts of their service area. But their long-range plan to get to what they say is real zero in 2040 is to be able to scale up hydrogen. If they can use, and they're doing a small pilot, I think, at their Palm Beach facility, where the key combination would be if we could use renewable energy to drive the chemistry which creates the hydrogen out of water, and then add the hydrogen into the mix with gas, and then finally just hydrogen into the power plants. Then you have done that final step. You've taken natural gas out of the equation, you replaced it with hydrogen, which is not a greenhouse gas emitter, and you generated the hydrogen through some renewable energy activity, because it takes energy to create the hydrogen. Sure, so it's a fascinating plan that they put out through their parent company, NextEra Energy. And I think Florida Power and Light hopes to be a real leader. We want them to be a leader because they're responsible for the grid. And while we can encourage the decisions they make and invest with them in the kinds of facilities they need to get there, it means as ratepayers, as we pay our electric bill, we have to know that some of that is going to this long-range plan convert us.
It's an investment, right,
It's
in our future.
Yeah, and they have the responsibility to maintain and help us recover in a storm. So it's not,
Right.
but they have made the commitment, and I think that's something that we should celebrate with them. But we have to make sure we get there with them.
So we're running out of time, but I did want to touch on one last thing. You mentioned FPL. That made me think of powering my own home. What can individual Miamians do to be a part of the solution? And we could start with the home, and obviously we talked about transportation alternatives.
Sure,
That they
those
could
are mobility
focus on.
choices. There is the opportunity, and one of the things the county is doing is seeking funding in several of the new programs that the federal government has now put out there for us to apply for, to make it more available to put solar on your roofs. We want to do an entire home approach. We want to make sure that the roof gets repaired adequately to take the solar. We think that insulation of the home is important to go along with the solar. And we're looking to combine various programs and funding sources so that we can provide these resources, especially the low and moderate income homes. In many cases, people who are fortunate enough to have more income can make this an investment that gives them a return, right? They're going to see that, and they have the resources. But if you're a low and moderate income homeowner, or you're a renter in a unit that you really don't have that decision making over, we've got to find ways to work at that level. And so we're aggressively looking for the funding, and we're coordinating the program delivery so that single family home can take advantage of all those steps and put themselves in a place where they can say they're part of the solution in terms of greenhouse gases, and they're saving money.
We'll talk about affordability in our housing crisis on another show. We're out of time today. But by the way, if you need a guinea pig for that program, sign me up. I'd be happy to do it. I've been wanting to go solar for some time now. So unfortunately, that's all the time we have. I do actually want to give you one last opportunity to remind our viewers about the Climate Summit.
Thanks, Javier.
So if you don't mind.
So for those of you that might be interested, if you have the time to take to come to the Miami Beach Convention Center on November 16th and 17th, that's a Thursday and a Friday, we'll have 2 days of programming on climate change solutions, things that we've been working on with our partner counties in Southeast Florida, but more importantly, bringing in people from outside of our region, from other countries and from the United States, to tell us what's worked there so that we can evaluate those options and bring them in. But it's in reality a celebration of the fact that our region and Miami-Dade County are leaders in this area, and we want to celebrate that and make the next year, 2024, one where we accomplish even more. So please come. You're welcome.
There you have it. Jim, thank you for being a guest. Thank you for all that you do and all that you've done over your lifetime of public service. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate that. You've done quite a bit. I may have a couple of years on you, but you've got a lot under your belt too. So
of great mentors to follow. So folks, that's all the time we have here on Mobility Matters. We want to again welcome you to join us every 2 weeks, every other Thursday from 9 to 10 a.m. to talk about mobility, but also other subjects as we did today. Once again, I want to thank our community partners, Miami's community newspapers, for producing the program. And please, if you're interested in joining the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, we are looking for board members. We are also looking for CITT ambassadors. You can learn more about those opportunities on our website, miamidade.gov/CITT. Thank you, and see you in a couple of weeks.